This is the Nightshade Cult, a podcast macabre.
We bid you welcome. Enter freely and of your own will.
I'm Nick Grimm.
And I'm David Graves.
And we'll be your horror hosts for this dissection of Tim Burton's 1990 Gothic Fairytale, Edward Scissorhands.
Good evening.
So it'd been a minute since I'd seen this.
It'd been a long minute since I'd seen or even thought about this movie. For some reason, Johnny Depp is out of my wheelhouse. I just stopped paying attention. And I guess that goes for his back catalog as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, we might as well just talk about this up front. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding Mr. Depp over these last few years. Well publicized, some court stuff with the ex-wife. The British court system labeled him a wife beater.
Oof.
Yeah. So Johnny Depp is no longer regarded as the sort of elfish man-child he was when they made this movie.
No, he seems like he's like a chain smoking dude in his 60s that you wouldn't want to let near a young lady that you care about.
Yes, yeah. I have a hard time arguing with anything about that. Although it does seem like, this is just observing from the outside, he seems a bit better since the divorce. I think.
He seems to be doing a bit better. I haven't paid close attention, but all signs point to better.
Yeah. So, yes, I think we should be redemption focused and we want everyone to do better. But it's been a bumpy road for Johnny Depp in these last few years.
Yeah. And it's at one point he was kind of, I don't know, like the golden child of like kind of gothy movies and roles, like alternative alt kids or whatever.
He was definitely Tim Burton's guy for many, many years.
Including that really terrible Willy Wonka thing.
Ooh, it's bad.
Tim Burton has a terrible, he's very hit and miss.
Well, there's
Frankenweenie.
The original Frankenweenie, the original short is another animal. But yeah, that sort of later Tim Burton stuff, I haven't enjoyed really any of it beyond a certain point. But this is still Imperial phase, and I think revisiting this movie seemed to spark in me similar sort of nostalgia feelings that you had for Beetlejuice.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Because I've mentioned this already, but the first couple Tim Burton movies were denied me by my restrictive parents. I didn't get Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and I didn't get Beetlejuice until I was like a teenager.
Interesting.
I didn't start my Tim Burton journey until Batman, and then my family was all in on Batman. Well, the movie, the merchandise, everything.
Yeah, it was a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, and so when this movie came along from the director of Batman, this one, for whatever reason, it got the pass, and so this one I have watched a lot of times.
Interesting.
But it's been a long time since I'd watched it.
An interesting thing I was reading was basically like after Batman was such a smash, of course, Burton could do no wrong.
Yeah.
And he was allowed to choose anything. And they wanted him to do, of course, Batman Returns immediately.
Yeah.
And then they also had a Beetlejuice sequel called Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. Mm-hmm. But he chose to do Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, he actually started developing Edward Scissorhands concurrently with Beetlejuice.
Okay, I mean, the imagery is very similar.
Yeah, and Warner Brothers passed on it. They're like, no, we want more Batman out of you. You're the Batman guy. And so that's how it ended up over at Fox.
Nice.
So it's interesting. He was even then sort of jumping back and forth between both sides of the fence.
Yeah, this movie was made for $20 million, and it made 86 at the box office. It seems kind of crazy that the maker of Batman wasn't given a blank check, but I guess it's a different studio, and this isn't really going to have the cultural cachet of a Batman.
Yeah, it is very much a fairy tale story. It's surreal. It's not an action movie. It kind of plays at being a romance, although I don't think it is very successful at being one.
Yeah.
But it's a very different animal from Batman, for sure.
And this movie was it was nominated for a lot of awards, like the Academy Award for Best Makeup, Golden Globe for Best Picture in musical or comedy category, which seems strange because it's not a musical and it's not funny. The Saturn Awards, Best Film, Best Performance by a Young Actor for Winona Ryder, and a BAFTA for Best Special Effects, and it didn't win a single award.
Wow, how'd they justify a BAFTA? Because this is not, I would not say this is a British production.
I don't know. It seems weird, like it makes no sense.
Yeah, because normally you need to be eligible for a BAFTA. You need to be produced in the UK or have a majority British cast or crew. And this is a very American movie, and it's both in theme and in execution.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird. I don't even know what genre, how you would market this, because it's not a comedy.
No, but it is. It's a comedy. This is a.
Is it a comedy?
It's funny.
Did you laugh?
I laughed quite a bit.
I didn't laugh at all.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. But it's a fairy tale. Fundamentally, it's Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, it's Frankenstein and Beauty and the Beast and a couple other tropes all kind of rolled into one.
And it's almost it's a surrealist sort of autobiography for Tim Burton. It's not his real life, but it's how he sees himself.
Yeah, and I noticed when I was watching this that it feels extremely Dr. Seuss. The imagery of the town, it's Whoville.
Especially by the end when everyone has their weird haircuts, they've morphed into Who's.
Yeah, this really felt like The Grinch and Beauty and the Beast and Frankenstein.
Yeah. And Tim Burton, I mean, obviously because even though he didn't direct it, the movie he's most associated with is Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, for sure.
And that is steeped in The Grinch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so those specials, those Rankin Bass specials everything are such a huge influence on him.
I mean, those Rankin Bass movies are a big influence on me too. I love them.
So yeah, Tim Burton really obsessed with Christmas because this movie is Christmas focused. Our next movie, Batman Returns, is set at Christmas time. Nightmare Before Christmas, obviously. There's something about the Christmas season that he just goes back to again and again. Yeah,
it's weird because it's like the least spooky holiday, but he's a spooky guy.
I think, there's that line in about scary ghost stories, and I can't think of which Christmas song it is. There's a long tradition of ghost stories at Christmas.
Okay.
That we've gotten away from as Christmas has become more commercialized. But that's like if you think about like Uncle Scrooge. Christmas Carol. That's the one. That's Christmas Carol. Miracle on that's about Santa. It's a Wonderful Life. It's sort of a ghost story in a way because he's a ghost looking at his own life. There's a long tradition of spooky Christmas stories.
Okay, maybe so. I hadn't really considered it that way, but yeah, there's a lot of tragedy at Christmas. I mean, 1990 was a rich year for movies.
Yeah.
I mean, like Home Alone,
also
Christmas movie. We got there's like Dances with Wolves. There were a bunch of good movies that came out this year, and it doesn't surprise me that this is among them. And it didn't win any awards because there were just a lot of good movies out.
It didn't even get it for the makeup.
No,
bummer.
No awards at all.
Wow. She got it for Beetlejuice
yeah.
She's got her.
I mean, I like I like the makeup in Beetlejuice better than in Edward Scissorhands. I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong.
I think it's more showy in Beetlejuice for sure.
Yeah,
there's more made up characters and stuff.
Yeah, it's more notable, more interesting, bigger. So I just thought that was some interesting information that it was nominated for all these different things, even a BAFTA, and it didn't get a single one.
That's the weird one. Yeah, so weird. Well, should we roll the music and get into this dissection?
Sounds great.
An Avon saleswoman ventures to the spooky house on the hill in search of new clientele. Instead, she discovers a strange, lonely boy with scissors for fingers. She takes him back to her suburban home to live, but the burbs prove less welcoming than they initially seem.
All right, I mean, the burbs seem less welcoming. That's it. For the synopsis, we don't have that he's a crazy Frankenstein that starts cutting people up.
No, I've said lonely boy with scissors for fingers.
So I was curious what it would do. So I asked AI to create a 5-sentence summary of this movie, just to see what it would do. I haven't even read it. I want to do this. We're doing it live.
We're doing it live.
Edward Scissorhands is a Gothic fantasy film about a man named Edward who is created by a scientist but abandoned before his hands can be completed. As a result, he has scissor blades for hands. Edward is found by a suburban woman, Peg, who brings him into her community. Despite his unusual appearance, Edward is kind and gentle, but his scissor hands make it difficult for him to fit in. That's 5 sentences, and it keeps going. He becomes a local celebrity for his talent as a hairstylist, but ultimately faces rejection and misunderstanding from the townspeople. Not bad.
I was more succinct.
Yours is way more succinct. This gets into the weeds. We don't need all this stuff, but I just thought it was interesting because
that's all accurate though.
I wondered how you come up with yours, so I figured I would just do this. And so I've been using a couple of automated. I don't like to call them AI because it's not really AI. It's just automation. Mm-hmm. I've been using some automation at my work to make some of my tasks go a lot faster.
Yeah,
I just figured I'd give it a try.
Yeah. I just tried to boil it down
to the bones.
As if I could do it in one sentence, that is ideal. You know what I mean? Like sometimes
I love those 1-sentence descriptions of movies that are accurate but wrong. Those are always fun. I don't know how we would make one for this, but it might be worth brewing on. So, I mean, this movie is interesting in the overall Gothic themes. Like, it opens up before we even get to Peg and her Avon calling, when we get to the ticky-tacky town of Whoville or whatever it's called. We're in a really, really cool Gothic factory.
Yeah.
Like, I love the engineer's, whole apparatus and his whole aesthetic.
Everything at the castle is amazing.
The castle is so cool. Like, I just want the whole movie to be at the castle.
The big unsupported staircase. Mm-hmm. It's Dracula's castle. It's the cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
It's Frankenstein's lab. Yeah.
It's all of those things. And it's also, like you said, sort of the Grinch's house up on the hill.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's many, many things. Yeah, so film is directed by Tim Burton. That's obvious. With a screenplay by Caroline Thompson.
Okay.
And she has this great quote about him where she said that he's the most articulate person I know, but couldn't string a single sentence together. Tim Burton's a visual artist. He is not a wordsmith. And so I think hiring a good writer was to his benefit here.
I mean, I think that's always a good idea, is hire a professional to do the thing.
Yeah, to know where your talent lies and where you could use help.
Like I'm a generalist at most things. Mm-hmm. If I need something done that requires specialized work, I'm going to get someone else to do it.
Yeah.
And I think Tim Burton, in this case, he knew it. He knew what to do.
Yeah. So he had drawn, when he was 16 years old, he had drawn the kind of the initial Edward Scissorhands sketch. And it really, it's really him. It's his representation of his self-image as this sort of misunderstood monster boy. And she took that and made a story around it. And I think that's, she did a really good job of creating a story where there's just images.
Yeah. I mean, the story here is just paper thin.
Yeah.
This really is just vignette after vignette, and it's trope upon trope.
Yeah.
There are no plot twists here. It's all just very predictable.
It is pretty straightforward, but I think it's got quite a bit to say still about the sort of the fake suburban veneer of things. I think there's, weirdly, as much as he has a reputation for not having race be a fixture in his movies, I think there's a race allegory in it for how Edward is treated, sort of exotified and then kind of branded as a dangerous sex predator before he's run out of town.
Yeah, I mean, that social commentary is certainly there, and I'm not sure if it was intended to be a commentary on race or on immigrants or any of these things.
It's anyone that can be exotified, commodified, and then ostracized, not to make a rhyme out of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely very clearly like you have tropes that are just so obvious, like the tall blonde-haired boyfriend who's an abuser and a piece of shit treats the weird boy badly and beats him up. It's like he was like Biff from Back to the Future.
Yeah, which shouts to Anthony Michael Hall for the puberty hammer hit him late. And he's upgraded now from being the nerd in all the John Hughes movies to being the jock in the Tim Burton movie. Which is pretty wild because there's not a big gap between this and Weird Science, just 4 years.
Yeah, he got lucky.
Yeah, he just bulked up and he's like, no more nerds for me. It's jock from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, and this is I don't really feel like the writing here was extremely notable. It was good in that it was invisible. You weren't like, whoa, what the hell?
The reason why I think the writing is exceptional in this is because she's just provided with so little to go on. Just these visual images and his sort of ideas about alienation and some vague concepts about growing up in Burbank or going to school at Cal Arts in Valencia, which is supposed to be the inspiration for the castle sitting above the neighborhood, is where the Art Institute sits above the neighborhood of Valencia. And so she just takes the gibberish, basically, that he gives her a drawing and a bunch of ideas that he had, and she makes a cogent fairy tale out of it.
Okay.
So I think that's a hard lift, actually, more than it might seem like.
Yeah, it's like drawing when you're provided a weird shape and you have to draw a picture around it.
She's like, I want to tell a story about this guy, and shows you a picture of Robert Smith with pointy fingers.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, give me a few weeks,
Yeah.
And so I think she's the only reason there's actually a movie here.
It's hard to make a movie, Edward Scissorhands, about a sad boy and have it not come across as budget Freddy Krueger.
Right?
But they did it.
Yeah. There's some weird similarities to Freddy Krueger, but it's very different. He's a very different character.
Yeah, but I mean superficially.
Yeah, superficially.
And so it's important that they be different.
Yeah. Very interesting.
I like the fantasy elements here. There's obviously some magic stuff going on. Edward is immortal, it seems.
It does seem that.
And he seems not to need to eat or drink, really, because how does he get food and water up there?
He does eat, though.
He can eat. But does he need to eat?
I think this is where the fairy tale aspect of it does a lot of heavy lifting, because we just don't deal with any of that stuff.
Yeah, it's like when you're watching Star Wars, they don't talk about going and using the bathroom.
Yeah.
You don't know where the water closet on the Millennium Falcon is?
I assume there is. Someone knows. Someone has schematics.
And you never use it after Chewbacca.
They have this. It's the same thing with an RV or a tour bus. If you're going to go in there and drop a deuce, you have to put a trash bag in the toilet and then tie it off and then take it out when you get to the truck stop.
Oh, damn.
You don't actually ever shit in the
black tank?
Yeah.
Dang, I didn't know about that method.
Oh, Jeez.
And I have a trailer. I should do it.
Yeah, you should not poop in it because
I never do.
But now you know the trick is to poop into a trash bag instead of in a toilet.
The more you know.
Yeah, let me tell you more tricks of the road.
You miss your calling. I mean, you're a driver, but you're not a trucker.
No, but I learned the road. We always had the pee jar. It was like a mayonnaise jar for peeing in when you're on the road.
Oh yeah, because your dad was a trucker. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So when you retire because you're a union guy, you retire young.
Yeah.
You could become like a hobbyist trucker. Just take a few jobs a month, maybe.
Just use it to subsidize vacations.
Yeah, basically. Exactly. I want to do a vacation, so I'm going to do some routes down to California.
Yeah, I'll take. Oh,
you like California anyway?
All my childhood vacations were in the truck. Because that's how those worked out, where it'd be like you would plot your vacation around, I got a load to take down there, and then we got a week down there, and then I'll have a load to bring back up here, and then
the whole family rides in the truck.
Yeah, and then Nikki goes back to school on Monday.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah.
And I'll be retired too, so I'll just ride with you.
You're just riding, yeah. We'll get one of those big sleeper trucks.
Those are expensive.
Yeah.
We're probably going to have to rent that.
We're getting way off base.
Company truck. We're actually writing a movie. Or that would actually be a really good vlog series.
Yeah. Or what if one of us wanted to become an arm wrestling champion?
Oh, it's got to be you. I'm not strong enough.
You're way stronger than me.
That would be hilarious. Doing one-arm pull-ups on the bar outside the truck. I can't do a one-arm pull-up.
No, never. Not in my best days.
All right, so visuals. I love the way this movie looks. I love the castle. I love Edward. I love the topiary. I like the spooky factory. It's my favorite part.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks great.
So cinematography is by Stefan Zapsky. And like I said this last episode when we were talking about Beetlejuice, and I thought the cinematography landed a little flat on that one. Mm-hmm. I think the Burton vision is starting to really come together now. He's starting to put his team together of people that can actualize his aesthetics. And this has it more. Like the suburban town is heightened and cartoonish.
It's very cartoonish.
But it's a real neighborhood. It's called Lutz, Florida.
And they just painted all the houses those colors.
So it was
crazy.
It was a brand new development, and not all the units had been sold yet. And so they basically just rented the whole neighborhood. And even the people that are already living in the houses consented to having their houses painted these colors.
Sure.
And it's interesting because I was thinking it was California. I was thinking it was Burbank, where he grew up. But Burbank had become too urbanized at this point in the 90s. Like, it was too modern.
Yeah.
So he had to kind of go to Florida to get that something that seemed like it was from the previous decade.
I definitely think that Edward Scissorhands is Florida man. Mm-hmm. I would have liked to see him wrestle a gator.
Yeah, it is Florida man. Just discovers his passion for cutting hair.
That would be an amazing one-line description of the movie.
Oh, yeah, Florida. Okay, that's the episode title. So what else? Art direction by Tom Duffield. Production design by Bo Welch. Costume design by Colleen Atwood. Makeup again by Vay Neal. And special effects by Stan Winston Studios. Stan Winston is a new person to the equation.
Okay.
And he developed the Edward Scissorhands hands. And
those are really cool.
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff that you're loving up in the Inventor's Castle, the little robots and automatons and everything.
Yeah, that stuff is really, really rad. So good on Stan Winston Studio.
A lot of these are people coming back from Beetlejuice and Batman, and they will be back again for Batman Returns. Like, he's really putting his Avengers together.
Do you think Batman Returns is really still in the Imperial phase?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
If one of the Batmans was to get pushed out, it'd be the Batman.
Yeah, Batman wasn't very good.
I don't agree, but we did a whole podcast about that.
We did a whole podcast
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
I just don't like how cartoony it is.
Well, I mean, you have to come to terms with this with Tim Burton.
Yeah, he's a cartoon director. He might as well just do animation.
Batman is probably one of his more grounded movies. It is.
I mean, except the entire set of Gotham City looks like a set.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a city at all.
That's on purpose.
It looks like a theater production of a city.
Some movies, sometimes realism is not the point of a film.
It's like World of Warcraft. They didn't want the characters to look real.
Well, they want them to look like they come from Azeroth.
Yeah.
Which has its own aesthetic that is not like Earth.
Exactly. We also did a podcast on Azeroth. So if you want to check that out, scroll up on your YouTube. All right. So I love the contrast in this movie. I obviously, you can probably get the vibe. I didn't love it, the whole movie in general, but some things did love. I loved, of course, the Gothic aesthetic, but the visual contrast, like how we go from, Edward Scissorhands to like a pastel pink and yellow and blue neighborhood that's just sterile and it's manicured. It's just an absolute like stark contrast to the gritty castle and factory. And this is, run down version of the castle, like post engineer being dead.
Yeah. And it's, no one goes up there. It's all very strange that there's, the old castle on the hill. Like
I would go there.
Everyone knows it, but
every heavy metal band would have their pictures taken in front of
the castle on the hill.
Yeah.
There used to be an inventor that lived up there. He made a scissor man.
That's the name of our first album, Scissor Man.
Yeah, it's the neighborhood and there's just some really exquisite car choreography because we're introduced this world of sort of bored housewives and dads who come home in the evening and then leave.
Yeah.
And then the wives just sort of run around and they have their own politics in the meantime. And so there's like this scene of all the dads going to work in the morning.
It really reminded me of the Dr. Seuss. It's crazy.
And it's all of the cars back out of the driveway sort of in concert. And it's a little awkward here and there, but it's just really well shot. It's like a big crane shot of the cars leaving. And there's similar, there's a matching shot of when the cars come home and dads come home for dinner.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and I just love the way all that stuff is executed. Because like you said, it's a lot of vignettes, right? Like the whole middle of the movie is vignettes about this suburban town.
Yeah, this movie really has, and this probably was for the first segment, the writing segment, but really, this movie is... the beginning kind of has a linear thing. This happens, and this happens, and this happens. And then the whole middle is just like a potpourri of random shit that doesn't really have a sequence. It doesn't really have
it doesn't have a lot of drive, I think is what.
Yeah, it's just slow because you're just meandering from semi-meaningless scene to semi-meaningless scene where they all slowly are painting a picture. They're sort of describing a vibe and slowly building
it's a vibe
movie, a narrative toward the end where at this point, like the fever pitch about Edward goes from obsession to a negativity. Yeah, it's still obsession. It's just no longer admiration.
The town turns on him.
Yeah, and so it really, it just sort of that middle part is really slow.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that. And I've been trying to think of what scenes I'd pull out or which ones I would make shorter, because it does give you a sense of maybe the movie's 10 minutes too long, because it's like 100 minutes and I feel like we should be clocking in at 9. There's maybe 85 minutes of story there.
Yeah, I think this is a tight 82 minute movie with like the 2-minute intro montage of the factory and all of that, and then like an outro.
Yeah. So obviously something in the town could go, like something with him and the townspeople. You know, maybe the sequence where he goes to the mall to get his blades sharpened. We don't need that one.
Not really.
You know,
needed.
that one doesn't really advance the story.
No. I thought the barbecue scene or whatever, the cookout scene, was too long, too much nonsense going on there.
That one probably, We're re-editing Edward Scissorhands. That one probably could get cut down.
The post-Christmas dinner when he has the lemonade drink, and then he goes, and then the next day he's offered lemonade and he vomits. I mean, all that stuff, and it's sort of like...
Oh, the puke.
Okay.
Yeah, we could lose the puke scene, because you can't really lose... the barbershop scene where she tries to seduce him
and fails.
Yes, but we don't need the lemonade one. You're right. That's another. Yeah. So pull that. Tighten up the barbecue. Pull the knife sharpening. Pull the lemonade.
And the end scene after, when the mob is assembled around the castle and they're kind of like negotiating with the police officer, and he goes up and sort of looks and sort of, all of that is really belabored.
Yeah.
That whole interaction with the police, with the policemen and all of that, they could have shaved like easily a minute out of that. Yeah. And it's a slow movie. It's not meant to be an action flick. It's meant to just be kind of a mood the whole time.
This is a movie for weirdos to put on the VCR while they're hanging out.
Yeah, for sure, because you don't have to pay attention.
Yeah, and you come back in for your favorite bits, and you tune out. And because what I found is that I had really kind of misremembered the tone of the movie. Yeah. In that I remembered it having a lot more star-crossed lover sort of Romeo and Juliet vibe to it. And there really isn't any of that.
It's barely there. At the very end, she's like, I love you.
Yeah.
That's like it.
Like, I kind of had this picture in my head. When I think of Edward Scissorhands, I think of... I guess we're transitioning over to audio, because I think of Danny Elfman's amazing score.
Oh, yeah. He's good in everything.
And I think of Winona Ryder dancing in the ice while he's carving the ice angel. Mm-hmm. And that was the image in my head of this movie, was that scene that is in the third act of the movie. And it's basically the beginning of the third act of the movie.
Yeah, I like
deep into the movie.
I like how her image change from Beetlejuice is so utterly complete. Mm-hmm. It's like, I like Winona Ryder in most of the movies she's done, and I think that this was a fairly flat performance, but image-wise, it looked really good.
Yeah, I think she nails this performance of a character I don't like very much.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's talk about the audio while we're there. Again, Danny Elfman is back again on the score. This is his favorite score out of a long history of film scores, and he considers it's his most copied score. He thinks people rip this one off the most.
Wow.
And I think this really might be his best score. And that's a lot.
I mean, it's really good.
It's really good, and it's designed as an opera so that you can listen to it and hear the story through the music without the visuals. And I think that the score really does take you on the journey along with the characters.
Yeah, it's really good. I don't have anything negative to say about it. I would like to see this movie reimagined and remade. I'd like a new version of this movie, and I don't know if I would include the Danny Elfman music because it's timeless. It's for this version.
If you were gonna
give me like a Chad Stahelski version with Junkie XL,
and it's an action movie.
Yeah.
I don't think that would be Edward Scissorhands.
No, it would be. It would be awesome.
It's John Wick Scissorhands. And it's Keanu Reeves.
Well, it's still Edward Scissorhands, but he's a member of the Assassin's Guild. Like, he goes in there and fumbles with the coins with his scissor hands.
Yeah, that's a little bit of levity before all of the dismemberment.
Yeah, and then
says he's trying to finger the coins out of his pocket with the scissor fingers.
And something happens, and then he's like pirouetting through the lobby, like with his hands out, and heads are flying. I mean, yeah,
that's it's always been one of my very favorite moments is the show and tell where he does sort of like the karate pose with his scissor hands and the whole classroom jumps back. I have loved that scene just forever.
That is a good scene.
So the other part of sound is the sound design. Supervising sound editor was Richard L. Anderson, and the sound design in this movie is exquisite because everything, the little snippy sounds.
Oh, so many scissor sounds.
And they're so well placed and well executed and sort of understated. And like, you know, the waterbed sound.
Oh, yeah.
Just the sort of leather, like crinkly sounds that he makes when he moves. Because he's like a leather scarecrow man.
Yeah.
Inside of a suit of clothes. Like it's all, everything about Edward makes little subtle sounds, and none of this stuff would have the impact that it did without the snipping sounds and things like that.
Exactly,
it just sells it constantly.
He has disadvantage on stealth rolls.
Yeah,
he cannot sneak.
I know, that's why he gets caught in the panic room when he goes to steal the VCR.
Exactly. Well, I mean, he wasn't the thief.
No,
it was the douchebag.
He was
a patsy.
Oof.
Hate to see it.
Yeah.
So you want to move on to performances?
I think we're there.
So we got Johnny Depp as Edward Scissorhands, and this is one of his iconic roles.
It's incredible. He's incredible in this movie. He, his weird whispered kind of Michael Jackson voice.
Yeah, it is kind of a Michael Jackson voice.
Edward is so... they talk about him being dog-like, but the writer talked about that, and Johnny Depp talked about in that he's sort of eager to please everyone, and doesn't always understand what's going on around him, but wants to be included and wants everyone to be happy. He's very sad, and I think he is very telling of how Tim Burton views himself in the world, you know, as he's the stand-in for Burton, really, and it's just a really, you know, it was a star-making performance. It helped him become the movie star that he became and get away from being the teen beat heartthrob from 21 Jump Street, which was what he was before this.
Yeah, I think this is a really good performance. It's nuanced. It's not over. It's not like a gross, overly dramatic performance. It's got a lot of subtlety to it. Yeah, I like that.
If you think about like the image of how Edward stands with his hands his arms sort of out away from his body, but with the fingers pointing down, so that he is trying to not hurt himself and not hurt anyone.
And not be threatening.
And not be threatening. Yeah, he's trying to make himself smaller and unimposing, and not scary when he's inherently scary because he's a scissor man.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a very scary thing.
Who'd you have next?
Next, I have Winona Ryder as Kim Boggs.
Yeah, she was the first person to sign up on this movie, supposedly. The first actor.
Okay. I mean, it has to be after Johnny Depp.
I mean, I was just reading somewhere. I can't remember because I read a bunch of things. But I guess that this was, you know, Burton had her in mind for this role from the very beginning.
Yeah. And she and Depp were dating, kind of famously at this time. It's where he gets the Winona Forever tattoo on his arm, and they were really capitalizing on that. Their real life romance playing into the movie romance,
and it's barely there.
I hate Kim Boggs. I just think she's such an awful girl. But a very believable, certain kind of teenage girl.
Yeah, a really superficial girl.
Yeah.
Not a lot going on.
She is along for the ride. Everyone else is doing things, and I tried to stop them, Edward. Oh, I tried. I didn't want to rope you into doing this armed robbery, but...
She's definitely not a doer. She's a follower.
And then, you know, even in the end, she uses him to threaten her boyfriend. Like, she takes his hand and holds it to Anthony Michael Hall's throat, and then she abandons him up in the castle and goes about her whole life, and it's just sort of,
and obviously gets married and has a kid and a grandkid because she's the grandma.
Yeah, and never goes back to visit him.
She didn't visit him once. She gave 0 fucks.
But she does occasionally dance in the snow.
She sucks. Kim Boggs sucks.
She's like Rose in Titanic.
Oh, yeah.
Pushing Jack off
She's
the
like,
door.
Get off of my extra buoyant thing. There's no room for you. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the worst.
She's the worst, but in a very believable teenage girl way. And she's also a very believable old lady in the old lady makeup. Like, she does a good old lady voice. It doesn't sound like a young woman. And so I'm going to go out on this limb and say it now. Winona Ryder, pretty good actor.
Oh, yeah, she does okay. She might have a future.
She might have a future. We'll have to watch her career as it goes.
See how that
forward.
Works.
Yeah.
I had Diane Weist next
as Peg Boggs.
Yeah, she was one of the early sign-ons as well, and her credibility got other people to want to get involved in this too.
Yeah, and she's great.
Yeah, she does an awesome job.
Peg is the opposite of her good-for-nothing daughter, Kim.
She's a doer.
She's a doer. She does, talk about the racial allegory. She does try to do the blind side with Edward, or I'm going to take him in and give him a good life. And
then whiteface him.
Yeah, and be a hero. Fix his skin and just, like, show him how to dress like a gentleman and get him a job and a bank loan and all this stuff.
She definitely has the best interests at heart. Yeah. And she's not trying to do anything wrong.
She's one of the most morally right people in the movie, if still flawed.
Yeah, she's just a regular lady who's just trying to do what she's doing. And I thought that the performance was really good.
Yeah, she's the anchor probably of the movie, right? Like she keeps the car on the road through the whole thing. And I think she does a great job at that.
All right, so who do you got next?
Anthony Michael Hall as Jim. Like I said, this is a reinvention for Anthony Michael Hall. He's gone from the nerd to the jock. Jim is awful.
Yeah, I hate the character.
Spends the whole movie trying to finger bang Winona Ryder, basically. And like, won't you be happier if we had a van with a bed in the back?
Yeah.
The whole thing is like, he's a rich kid but a loser at the same time, which is
like met lots of those.
It's a really terrible combo. Like he's got a really bad abusive dad, and he takes advantage of everyone, even though he brings nothing to the table. And just it's an against type. Really good performance from Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah, he does a good job. I absolutely hate the character.
He's so punchable.
Yeah, it's just such a trope. He's terrible.
Even when he shows up in the end with his bad boy leather jacket.
Yeah,
and you hate that.
He doesn't even look cool.
You're like, oh,
because he's wearing like a lame striped shirt underneath. Yeah, he doesn't even look cool.
You made that look lame, you douche. And it's just like, and what's the scene where they're chugging beers in the back of his buddy's van. Yeah, that he's covetous of this van. The shaggin' wagon that he wants to have, and he's like, the guy's like, don't make me drive. I'm too drunk. And he's like, oh, just drive. And he's like, they're right about you. You know? Like no one even likes this guy. He just through force of personality runs the town.
And the lame ass Kim Boggs like basically tries to break up with him like a dozen times and it never sticks because she has no spine and he's an abuser.
Yeah, basically. Yeah,
he's terrible. But Anthony Michael Hall, pretty good.
Anthony Michael Hall.
He might turn out to be good.
Very good actor, just a shitty character.
Yeah, so I had from here there's a lot fewer people that are like highly notable.
Yeah, I've got a few more.
So who do you got?
Next on my list is Kathy Baker as Joyce Monroe.
Yep, got her.
The neighborhood seductress,
floozy
cougar on the prowl. Very formative character to me as a young boy.
She's just like Peg from Married with Children.
She very much makes me think of Peg Bundy, who's also an early formative lady for me on TV. Joyce is awful, and she accuses Edward falsely of sexual assault, and that's not acceptable. But still, I think Kathy Baker kills this one too.
She does a good job.
A lot of fantastic character actors in this movie. And then after that, I got Vincent Price in his final role.
Yeah, Vincent Price. When he came on the screen, I was like, whoa, I didn't remember that he was in this.
Yeah.
Dang, he does a good job.
He does a lot. And this was, Vincent Price is a huge, one of these heroes to Tim Burton, obviously. He grew up on those Roger Corman, Vincent Price movies. And he does a lot with a little. He does everything you want out of a Vincent Price performance. He does just the sort of like creepy uncle in the best sense of the word, not the
Okay, how about not creepy uncle, spooky uncle?
Spooky uncle. Yes, that's better because we use creepy to mean something else.
Yeah, you don't ever want to be around a creepy uncle, but you do want to be around a spooky uncle.
Yeah,
he's cool.
Vincent Price is a spooky uncle, and
may we all be spooky uncles.
I am. I know you are. I
am too.
Uncle. Yeah. I love being spooky uncle, and Vincent Price. He's just delightful as the inventor.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when he dies, it's tragic, and it just has this more poignancy to it because he actually passed away shortly after this.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's just all very sad. I really love the scenes with him in them.
Yeah, he was really good in this movie. I got Alan Arkin in there as Bill Boggs.
Yes,
it's pretty good.
I love the dad. I love how he calls him Ed.
Yeah,
and basically like is trying to teach him dad stuff,
like how to be a man.
Yeah, and like, oh, you're gonna need to go get a bank loan, and it'll be no problem. Like he's so deluded as far as how
there's
the
like
world,
so much privilege.
Yeah, how the world actually works. But just means well, and it's like when Winona Ryder comes home and he's sleeping in her bed and pops the waterbed and everything, he takes him downstairs and like makes him an old fashioned and and it's like, women, what are you gonna do? Like basically, and like he never really like makes Edward feel weird about having Scissorhands. Like he can't pick up the glass and he just sort of plunks a straw in it without saying anything, that's like people with disabilities or whatever just want to be treated normally, basically.
Yeah, right?
I
did like that about this movie. And
he handles it just sort of perfect. Like he's a very good, slightly out of touch dad.
Yeah, I mean, and I like in the barbecue when the disabled veteran guy talks to him, he says, "Never let him call you a cripple" or whatever. And then later on, he uses it as a slur.
It's such a betrayal.
You Judas!
Because did they catch that cripple?
I hated that so much. It's just the worst because he's a Judas. He's turning on his own.
And that's one of those scenes, like, it's easy to say the movie's a little too long, but it gets a lot harder when you think, like, which little thing do you cut out? Because I think that's an important moment.
So like if there's a call and then a call back, if you delete one, you have to delete the other.
Right.
That's just part of it.
But then like we're stuck with the second lemonade then, because there's the lemonade when he has like the whiskey drink, and then the lemonade when it's actually lemonade but he throws up. So that is the call and the call back.
Yeah, I don't know.
Editing a movie, I think, is hard. Maybe harder than us as podcasters.
Probably not. I think putting
our podcast.
Yeah, I think putting a podcast together is harder.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with that. Anyone else you want to get?
I mean, nah. There's some bit parts.
I'll go
Kevin.
Yeah.
Robert Oliveri.
Yeah.
As the younger brother.
I was going to say we should mention Olan Jones as Esmeralda, the crazy church lady.
She's pretty crazy.
If no other reason than she composed or arranged her own organ music for the movie.
To the little like Casio beatbox thing.
Well, no, that's like, my grandma had an organ like that.
They would do that?
Like an old pedal organ.
Nice.
It's like a church, it's like a 70s church organ when they became affordable.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
she composed that music.
Yeah, or arranged it.
Okay,
I think they're
whatever.
probably traditional songs, but she, put her spin on it, and that is a great, awful character.
That character is horrible, but I love it. It's so indicative of small town.
Oh, and then Dick Anthony Williams is Officer Allen. The do nothing cop. Who,
like maybe the worst cop ever. He's like goes up, fires his gun a few times in the air. yeah, get out of here.
Yeah. That's his way of like, I don't want to go kill this kid, and I don't see how else I'm getting out of this.
Yeah.
So he's just like, he got away. There's nothing I can do about it. Go home, angry mom.
Yeah. Just drive away. No big deal.
Not a very good cop.
No, terrible cop. So that's that for performances. I'm very curious. What is your personal highlight?
There's many scenes in this movie that I love and remember fondly, like such as like all the hair cutting first with the dogs and then with the ladies, the show and tell. But ultimately the ones that I think that really stuck with me again, and I think that it's because he passed away, are all the scenes with Vincent Price.
Okay.
I think those moments where we see Edward, him being the idea being sparked, and as he starts assembling him and teaching him, and then he tragically passes away before completing him.
You'd think he would put on the hands before bothering to read him etiquette manuals?
You'd think. He's an eccentric inventor. And he started from like a cookie cutter robot.
Yeah, that's true.
It wasn't like he started out building people. He started out
making cookies.
Making cookies, yeah. And those scenes just had this extra resonance because this was his final performance, and I think they're really beautiful. So all the flashback sequences with Vincent Price are the highlight for me.
All right.
What about you?
So I didn't expect that one from you. I thought you would steal mine, but that's okay. No. I'm going to go with the previously mentioned ice sculpture scene.
It's beautiful.
I think it's iconic scene of the movie. It's the scene to see with Edward going ham on the ice, and you have Winona Ryder dancing around, and you have the ice snow, and it kind of juxtaposes his kind of sharp, brutish hands with like a beautiful, delicate sculpture. It's just really good scene. It's probably the very best scene in my opinion.
Yeah, the score really soars there. And to your point, that is when I think of this movie, that was the scene I thought of.
Yeah, that's the scene. I think the idea of this movie, the premise or the promise, is that there will be this kind of soaring love story between these two when you see that scene in the preview or whatever.
Yeah.
And it never materializes. Yeah. But the scene is still beautiful.
Yeah, because because this is so much like Beauty and the Beast. It's that the tale as old as time dance scene in that movie where you see Belle is actually falling in love with the Beast, right?
Yeah.
And then we don't get the ending where she goes and lives in the castle with the prince. We don't get that
ending. No. She goes off and meets some other rando.
Yeah, just a normal guy. She probably marries Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah, she probably does.
No, he dies. Never mind. You can't marry him.
You're right.
She probably marries the guy that owned a van.
Oh, yeah. She, too, is coveting the mattress.
It's got a cooler full of Coors Light.
What's not to like?
Yeah.
So what worked for you?
The aesthetics of the movie, immaculate. The Tim Burton aesthetic is really becoming complete, and the movie looks gorgeous. Is this Danny Elfman's best score? He thinks so. I'm inclined to not disagree with him. He's done a lot of incredible scores, but when you think about Danny Elfman music, I think you think of this music. Or maybe you probably think of Nightmare Before Christmas.
I think about Nightmare Before Christmas.
But Nightmare Before Christmas is very evocative of this score. Like it has a lot of the same motifs to it.
This is the hipster version of Nightmare Before Christmas.
I was into Danny Elfman before Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes.
And then the performances, especially Johnny Depp, but all of this ensemble we talked about, everyone, really knocks it out of the park with playing very, small archetypal characters, but playing them to the full extent. So for me, that's what worked. What worked for you?
First of all, the Gothic vibes. Yeah. The movie has it just oozes spookiness, even in the places that are meant to be suburbia. They're sterile and they're monotone almost, and they're a caricature of suburbia. So
suburbia is creepier, I think, than the Gothic.
Yeah, and so it contrasts really well with the castle and with Edward. I really like the Burton flavor. Like it was a little cartoony in Beetlejuice. Here it's more sterile, but also a little spookier.
Yeah.
I like that. And then my other one I have here is the monster himself. Yeah. Edward Frankenstein. He is
Pinocchio, the Beast.
All of these things. I like him. He looks amazing. His the makeup is great. The effects for the hands are great. The leather suit is great. The Johnny Depp's performance is amazing. The image of Edward is the movie.
Yeah. So let's talk just real quick about some of the other people that could have played this role.
Oh, okay.
So Gary Oldman was offered the role.
Ooh, he'd have been good.
But he didn't understand it. He's like, I don't understand what this movie is.
Okay.
And passed on it. And then he saw it and he's like, oh no, I see what they were doing. And then does Dracula like immediately afterwards. So I think
Dracula was amazing.
He's like, next one of these goth movies that comes along, I'm doing it. Tom Cruise actually really wanted it, but didn't like the ending.
Oh, okay. He wanted to get the girl.
Yeah,
and, okay.
Because Tom Cruise is famously, he says he's in the business of making Tom Cruise movies.
Yeah.
So it would have to have a Tom Cruise ending. And so that was the deal.
Yeah, he shows up at movie sets and really just takes over.
Yeah. So he was out. And then RDJ was the other one.
Oh, okay. I could see that.
I could see that being really good, actually. I could see him being really good at it.
Yeah, we should reprise it now with this old Robert Downey Jr.
That would be very weird.
Yeah, it would be awesome.
Okay. Whose turn is it?
So let's go with you. What didn't work?
We've talked about this already, but it bears repeating. The mushy middle. It's got some strong...
This is an Oreo.
It's got some strong pacing issues. It's like 100 minutes, and it feels longer than it is.
Felt hella long.
Yeah, and so I feel like someone needed to take those scissor fingers and just snip about 15 minutes out of this movie. Because I'm fine with a light little fairy tale like this, but it should feel light. It should feel like brisk, and like not overstay its welcome.
Yeah.
And the middle of this movie is just a little too unstructured.
Yeah.
And then I don't think it works as a romance.
No.
I think the sort of star-crossed lovers, Beauty and the Beast thing, they don't actually, to use the phrase you like to go back to so often, the promise of the premise, they don't actually fulfill the promise of the premise with the Beauty and the Beast, because the Beauty lets the Beast go back to his castle and work ice sculptures for eternity on his own.
I murdered Gaston, and now I'm going to go back to town. You better hide. I'll never see you again.
Basically. That's basically how it wraps up. It's like, but just know, when you're carving your ice statues, sometimes I'll dance in the
sometimes I'll remember this.
Yeah. So as a romance, it just doesn't work. And I think that's unfortunate. What about you? What didn't work for you?
Many things.
I had a feeling.
The things that you mentioned did not work for me. The romance was terrible. The pacing was terrible. Moving on. I don't like Tim Burton's whimsy.
Oh.
I don't like it.
Kookiness, he calls it.
I don't like his kookiness. I don't like the cream puff on the top of the Gothic confection. I want it to be more like Batman if Batman were better. Okay, hold on. More like Batman if Jack Nicholson's Joker wasn't in the Batman. I want it to be...
I can't wait to see what you think about Batman Returns.
Oh my God. I want it to be more grim, a little more dark. Don't take it all out. Like, I like some of that stuff, like with the scissors and the glass and all this stuff that's just kind of quirky. Mm-hmm. But Jesus, some of this stuff is just lame. And it was boring. This movie was boring. About halfway through, I was checking my phone, like, oh, when is this fucking thing over?
Yeah.
I really want to be done with this movie. I got the coolest part. The coolest part was the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It was like 5, maybe 10 minutes in. I'm like, man, this is going to be cool. And then it was like, not cool. Not cool at all. This is boring as shit. I want my time back.
Oof.
This sucks. I do not like this movie. It is boring. It is not paced well, and it's too puffy. There's no plot. No plot at all. None at all. Stranger comes to town. People love him. People hate him. They run him off. That's the whole fucking movie.
Yeah.
It's basically shit. The writing is trash. I could write better than this on a napkin. I'm not even kidding. The dialogue, good. Nuanced little scenes, good. There were really well-crafted things attempting to be humor, like Comedy 101.
Yeah.
Make a reference and then later on come back to the reference in a way that exaggerates it.
Yeah.
He does that really well. But holy shit, there's no plot. There's not a single bit of plot in this movie. There's zero. It's a negative plot. It's a setting. This is like a ride at a theme park. You experience the whole movie in one circle.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck, guys? Did you not have a QC person? Did you not have an associate writer to do a punch up on this? Because the writing was boring as shit.
Oof.
And I did not like the abusive boyfriend, Jim.
Yeah.
I understand Anthony Michael Hall did not write this.
Yeah.
I understand that his performance was exactly what they asked for.
Yeah.
But how many times does she have to say no, and then he puts his hands on her?
Yeah.
I counted like 4 times before I was like, fuck this movie.
Yeah.
This is just an abuser story. I do not like it. This movie sucks.
He does get pushed out a window.
He does get killed. I'm not sure abuse deserves death. It deserves therapy, an apology.
Redemption for Jim.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked that, but I also would have liked it if there was a romance in this movie. There's no romance.
Yeah.
None at all. Not
They're
between
really...
Jim and, what's her name? Winona.
Yeah.
Not between Edward and Winona. Not between the Boggs parents. There's no romance here. None. Nobody loves anyone.
No. That's fair.
The only love I saw was the engineer and Edward. That was it.
And that's... You know, that's interesting that you come to that because I think that's why those scenes...
That's why they resonate.
They resonate, yeah. And
they're the only realness.
The tenderness of those scenes and just... And Johnny Depp doesn't even have any dialogue in those scenes.
Yeah. He
just sort of looks lovingly at the old man that's created him.
Yeah, it's like the writer is like, the necromancer looks down upon his flesh golem. The golem looks back and smiles. And that's the sweetest scene.
Yeah.
Come on. All right. That's what didn't work for me. What do you rate this steaming pile?
We're going to be way off base because I love this movie.
Don't give it 5, bro.
No, I'm not going to give it 5.
I was like, come on.
I'm not going to give it 5. But I can't really separate myself from the affection I feel for it.
It's sort of like me and The Crow, and I gave in on that one.
And you gave it 5. I don't think this is a 5-star movie.
No, it's not as good as The Crow.
I see its flaws, but I watched this movie just sort of talking along with it and grinning and just sort of loving.
I knew you would love this when I watched it. I was like, this is Nick's jam.
Yeah. This is like, I don't know. I think it at 1990, I'm like 10 years old or whatever, like whatever age I was the perfect age to imprint on Edward Scissorhands as like, that's what it's like for me. Weird little art monster. I just want to make my art and be loved and be seduced by that middle-aged lady.
See, I saw him and I was like, if I had scissors for hands, I'd kill everyone that was mean to me. Why won't he just do something about it? Why does he just accept the abuse that they give him? Do something, Edward.
He's just a sweet little puppy boy.
I guess I was not a sweet little puppy boy.
Yeah, no. So 4 stars for me. I think
I predicted that.
Yeah, I think this is a 4.
So I wanted to make a big statement and give it a 1, but I think that's actually just bullshit. It's not a 1-star movie. There's beautiful moments. There are some excellent performances. It's certainly not a 4-star movie. It's probably, if I put aside my feelings and just look at it analytically just and review my notes, it's a 3-star movie.
That's fair.
It's mediocre. It's boring as shit in the middle, but it has beautiful moments here and there. This needed an editor and an associate writer. Mm-hmm. It needed those things. Like, it really did. Because the imagery was great, but they went nowhere with it. It really was all style, no substance.
Yeah. You say that, but I feel like Tim Burton got worse later on that regard.
So Tim Burton is widely regarded as a genius.
Uh-huh.
I don't think so. I don't. I think he is a one-trick pony. He's like the Rolling Stones. He does one thing really well, and people like that thing, but I don't think that's special. Lots of people do one thing really well.
Not that many people. Not as well as he does that one thing that he does.
He is not in the same breath as like Ridley Scott or James Cameron or some of the greats.
No, I agree with what you're saying there. He doesn't have. I mean, you think of someone like a Ridley Scott, and obviously we're fans of his, and have just become bigger fans.
Yeah, sure. Every movie I watch, I love him more.
Yeah, the versatility of Ridley Scott is phenomenal. Like, if you think
but even James Cameron, like
Gladiator to Alien,
I mean,
on different planets, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, Ridley Scott is the master. Yeah. He's my favorite. But there are other people that just, I think, could have done this and made the movie really interesting if Tim Burton was responsible for the visuals and the vision.
Yeah.
They could have made a better movie.
Yeah.
Like, the movie was boring. Anyway, the world agrees with you.
Okay.
Not me. Mm-hmm. IMDb gives it 7.9. Rotten Tomatoes, overly generous, gives it 90%. That's nonsense because it's rose-tinted glasses. Letterboxd, which is a lot more legit, gives it a 3.9 out of 5. So basically a 4. But this was just Whoville plus Beauty and the Beast plus Frankenstein, and meh.
That's actually probably better than I thought that you were going to think about it.
Well,
I was thinking as I'm watching it, because I always have the sort of the David commentary.
You know me pretty well.
Yeah, and I think like, oh man, Dave's gonna hate all this, and I was like, there's too much whimsy. There's like, this isn't going anywhere.
It doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, and it's like he doesn't have the patience to sit through this.
I did though.
You did. I appreciate.
I will say that for the podcast, I have never faked a review, because if I don't like it, I want to sit through it and savor that.
Yeah.
I want to savor it so I could talk about it.
Yeah. I think, and that's good. Honesty is good.
Because if I loved everything, then it'd be weird.
It would. It'd be very weird to love everything.
All right, so let's take a break, and then we'll come back with the Vault of Darkness.
Before we delve into the Vault of Darkness, we ask that all initiates of the cult follow us on your favorite social media platforms at Nightshade Cult.
If you've enjoyed this content, help us grow the cult by sharing it with like-minded people, and leave us a review wherever you listen.
All right. Before we get into the vault, do you have any dark tidings you want to bring up?
I do not.
Well, then, I want to use this dark tidings section to talk about some movies that we saw. Because you saw Alien Romulus.
I did.
And that's relevant to our past series.
Yeah.
I saw Beetlejuice. I went to an advanced screening
How was that?
Well, you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was charmed. I was amused.
Nice.
I enjoyed it. I laughed. It was very good to see that Tim Burton still had those chops to do a practical, not entirely CG nonsense movie. It felt like a nice little love letter to himself and movies that he used to make. And I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the cast and in general. It's clunky in a way that all Tim Burton movies are clunky with the storytelling. But it is charming, and I think it's definitely, if you like Beetlejuice and you like the newer stuff like Wednesday, I think you'll enjoy Beetlejuice.
I liked Wednesday.
Yeah.
So
it does a really good job of bridging the gap between Imperial Tim Burton and modern digital Tim Burton.
Are they doing another season of Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I want to see that movie. It does seem cool. I like Beetlejuice a lot. And
it didn't like. I was happy with it. Like
Okay,
I was very kind of apprehensive about that movie, and I was satisfied with it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. What about Alien Romulus?
Yeah, I went and saw Romulus. I went and saw that with my wife, and it was really good. I mean, I've read reviews from friends, people I like, and I trust their opinions, and they didn't like it. Mm-hmm. But their complaints were things that don't bother me. Like, this felt like an alien movie made by someone who studied the first 3 Alien movies and wrote out a formula and then cranked this out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Because those movies were awesome. This is an alien story. This isn't like the definitive alien movie. It's literally like fits between episode 1 and 2.
Yeah. It's another episode of the Alien franchise.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be the grand next thing. It is just a really fun and cool story. Maybe it's not fun, but it starts on this mining planet, this mining colony, and these people are just like oppressed by the company because Weyland-Yutani is, they
Awful.
are all.
Yeah.
I got some Weyland-Yutani logo stickers, and I've been putting them on things, like property of Weyland-Yutani, building better worlds. And they devise a plan to get on a ship and go up to a derelict station that will have cryopods on it so they can use the ship that they have, like a mining hauler, and with those stolen cryopods to make it out of the system to a place where they can go and be free or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
And guess what was on the derelict station?
Because is it the Nostromo? Like,
no, it's actually a place where they had taken the materials. And what's the name of the android from the first movie? Ash. I don't know.
Alphabetical. It's Ash, Bishop. I don't know who the C is, but then David.
Yeah, so he's there. Like, they CG that guy, the actor, and he's like tore up. Only his upper torso is there. He's like destroyed.
Oh, and so it's the Ash. It's not.
And he's like
Ash.
I don't know. I wasn't clear on that. I'm sure I could read about it, but it didn't matter. It doesn't actually matter.
We're going more spoiler than I expected.
Well, yeah, whatever. I mean, there's really no spoilers. It's an alien movie.
Yeah,
like. Alien, they were doing experiments on the shit that they found in Alien 1.
Yeah.
And shit goes sideways. And guess what? There were more of them in cryo. And when the people steal the cryo fuel to fuel their tanks so they get out of the system, guess what gets uncrioed? Face huggers.
Okay.
And it goes nuts from there. It's dope. We get tons of the xenomorph fighting, tons of them.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And then there's like a crazy new alien thing.
Yeah.
That's really
like a hybrid thing.
Disgusting body horror hybrid human, and it's sick. And people are like, yeah, this watches like a greatest hits album. Cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
So that's very much, I think we're then in the same boat with Alien Romulus and Beetlejuice. They're both doing kind of that same thing where it's feeding you member berries and being like, remember how much you liked this? Here's more of it.
Yeah, I do like that. I like the android too. I can't remember his name. David. No, it's not David.
It's Ash.
No. There's another one. Like the new android.
He's supposed to be the big breakout for this movie. Everyone
was killer. Like
everyone is in love with that performance.
That character, because you get like 2 performances because he's broken in the beginning, and one of the characters, like he's malfunctioning. He has computer issues, software upgrade issues, or whatever. He's glitchy, and so he's like being taken care of, kind of like a younger brother. He's being cared for by one of the main characters, and then when they get up there, they take like the chip out of ash unit or whatever, and they use it to fix his firmware, and it totally like over the wire upgrades him, and then he's like a totally different performance, and he's badass.
So it's David Johnson is the actor, and Andy is the name of the android.
Yeah, Andy is that. Yeah. That performance is excellent. It's one of the very best in the series.
That's something that has been, I think, unanimous in all the reviews you see, that he's exceptional in it. So,
yeah, and both of the Andys that you experience are really well acted. Like it's really good. The actor is super versatile.
All right. Well, I think we'll probably see more of David Johnson.
Yeah, I'm sure. You can't give a performance like that and not get jobs.
Cool. Yeah. So I think we'll see the other movie probably.
Yeah. It's worth seeing.
Cool. What are you pulling out of the Vault of Darkness?
I got old news for you.
Okay.
Just old shit.
All right. Me too.
And it's not even like old as in retro cool because I did Tron last time. It's old as in like recent, but only semi-old. So this might actually just be stale.
Not old enough to be retro, just not relevant.
Just not relevant. 100% irrelevant.
Okay.
So I famously in my own aggrandizing mind, I will not subscribe to a new service to see one show. I just won't.
But one show that you wanted to see has to come to Netflix.
Yes.
Okay, I know where this is going.
Interview with the Vampire, AMC. Fuck you, AMC. It's on Netflix now. I started watching it. I am savoring it. I'm watching it slowly.
Yeah.
So I'm not even through season 1.
Just one episode a week? Or a day?
Every few days, me and Carrie just decide when we're ready to pay attention.
Okay. Yeah.
No phones, no computers. We're just watching this thing.
Yeah.
And we're about halfway through the first season, and I fucking love it.
Yeah.
And I love the conceit of it because it's not so have you seen it?
I have not watched it yet.
Okay, so this is worth knowing. It's not just a redo. It's a continuation. So 49 years after the original Interview with the Vampire, the same reporter meets up with Louis again. And they're in they're in the UAE or whatever in some like super mega tower thing where Louis owns it and he has him there, and the journalist has become like a famous personality or whatever, and he grants him another interview, and Louis wants to retell the story, but this time he wants to do it with more detail, and he wants to do more justice to it, because the first time he told it was very brief. The beginning part was very brief, accelerated, and it was overly emotional and judgmental. He wasn't doing things justice. So we had the aging reporter, and we have Louis, who is not aged at all, of course, and he's telling him the story, and they're elaborating on all of this stuff. Like they're still in New Orleans, and they just at the stinger of the episode, they're meeting Claudia, immortal Claudia. So it's like they're really milking it, you could say, in a negative way, but I would say they're more like teasing it out and making it more interesting,
making it into an episodic show instead of a movie.
I really enjoy the modern day discussions between Daniel, the reporter, and Louis, and he asks him, like, why are these things different? Here's the old tape. He plays the original tape, and he's like, and now you're saying this. You condemned Lestat, blah, blah, blah. And now here you're saying you were lovers. And he said, I was jilted. I had these, I remember it differently, and et cetera. And so there's a lot of interplay, like homages, but it's a modern retelling, and it's really good. It's definitely worth checking out. You don't have to subscribe to AMC. You can just go to Netflix. Yeah. And you don't have to pirate it or get a virus or anything. So yeah, I highly recommend it. This is stale news, but it's good news if you're a spooky kid and you want to see Interview with the Vampire on a service you already subscribe to.
Yeah. This is the reaction I expected from what I've heard about it. So I have been kind of eagerly waiting for you to finally
pull the trigger on it.
Cultist Ted has been a big proponent of this show, and he's asked me a lot of times. He's like, "Have you and David watched it yet?" And I was like, "No, David won't subscribe to anything else, and I'm not going to watch it till he watches it." So it's like, so I've been waiting for you to get to it, so I need to catch up with you.
I'm not that far in. Okay. I definitely recommend watching it slowly, and it's just super good. Yeah, that's about it. What about you? What are you pulling from the vault?
I've got two films, either of which would make a great double feature with Edward Scissorhands.
Nice.
One is an inspiration for the movie, and the other is just an interesting 1990 counterpoint to it.
Ooh,
so
Home Alone?
Home Alone. Also about Christmas. Also a star-making turn.
Also about a lonely boy.
Yeah, no. So the first one is La Belle et la Bête from 1946, directed by Jean Cocteau. It is the Beauty and the Beast story that you know, and this is like, you know how MF Doom is your favorite rapper's favorite rapper? La Belle et la Bête is your favorite filmmaker's favorite film. It's that movie that's just hugely influential on people like Tim Burton, like Guillermo del Toro. It's gothic fantasy, romance, monster movie. It's just a gorgeous, like, it's not in English, it's in French, and I think that's why it's maybe not as well known here in America.
But there's got to be a dubbed version.
Yeah, but you shouldn't
just kidding.
I know it's dubbed is easier, and I'm not a dub purist. I will watch dubbed movies,
especially if it's anime. But film is different than anime.
I think you should watch the original French performances, and it's a Latin-based language. You can kind of
figure it out.
You can kind of at some point listening to French and reading the subtitles, you just lock into it, and you're sort of half reading, half listening. You know what I mean?
All right.
And this is just a gorgeous film. It's I don't know. It's a movie that's been done. It's a story that's been told so many times, but this is the definitive one, in my opinion.
Gross boy plus hot girl.
Yeah, it's every gross boy's fantasy. I'm truly a prince inside of this beastly form.
Dang.
If only a bookish girl would be sequestered here with me till I could Stockholm her.
I mean, yeah, that sounds about like my life.
Yeah, once you get them locked up with you, they have no choice but to fall in love. But this is a beautiful movie, and I think it's very much worth watching if you like gothic romance fantasy stuff. It's one of the building blocks of the genre.
Okay.
So La Belle et la Bête from 1946, and then from 1990. Johnny Depp had a second film that came out with another auteur maverick weirdo director, and that's John Waters, and that movie's Crybaby.
Oh, I saw Crybaby.
Yeah, and Crybaby is like a pastiche of 1950s juvenile delinquent movies.
Yeah,
with Johnny Depp as the titular Wade Crybaby Walker. It's got this big ensemble cast with Iggy Pop and Ricky Lake and Tracy Lords. It is I think, and Willem Dafoe's in it even. It's John Waters' first film after Divine had passed away. Mm-hmm. He previously made all of his movies with her. And so it's kind of him stretching out without his collaborative partner. And it's another one of Johnny Depp giving a delightfully weird performance. And you kind of, I think that movie, along with this, along with Edward Scissorhands, reminds me of why we liked Johnny Depp so much back then. You know what I mean?
He's like a cool rocker guy.
Because I had sort of I'd gotten really down on Johnny Depp over the last few years, and so going back to this sort of 20-something Johnny Depp, quirky, eccentric, arty Johnny Depp, was interesting. It was interesting to go back to it and remember how much I liked it at the time. So I think La Belle et la Bête and Crybaby, either one of them, just pairs excellently with Edward Scissorhands.
We'd like to thank you for joining the Nightshade Cult.
Until we meet again, we're wishing you unpleasant dreams.